I'm Nic Reveles, the Geisel Director of Education and Outreach for San Diego Opera. Welcome to the San Diego Opera video podcast. What you heard playing earlier was a nocturne for piano by the wonderful composer Frédéric Chopin, who was born in Poland in 1810 in a little town near Warsaw. Now, you may be wondering why I'm beginning a podcast about opera by talking about a composer who never wrote one, but stick with me. It's interesting to recognize that as a person who had a fine cultural and musical education at the hands of his father, a school teacher and a French tutor, Chopin was surrounded by great literature, poetry, art, and, of course, opera. At the National Theatre in Warsaw, he was exposed to the great Italian and French operas of the day, and one of his closest teachers at the Warsaw Conservatory was none other than the director of opera for that theatre. It was there that Chopin became familiar with the great works of Rossini, the composer of The Barber of Seville, which will close our upcoming season, and Vincenzo Bellini, whose operas were beginning to take Europe by storm. But Chopin didn't stay in Poland. In fact, in 1831 he moved to Paris, where he remained for the rest of his life. He found himself at the center of the Romantic movement, and he was friendly or on intimate terms with all of the great literary figures, painters, and musicians of that era. The Italian composer Gaetano Donizetti, who wrote Don Pasquale, also moved to Paris in 1835. And he too moved in these same circles. Today, it's difficult for us to think that there was a time when the writer Heinrich Heine, the pianist and composer Franz Liszt, the painter Eugène Delacroix, and maybe Bellini, Donizetti, Rossini, and Chopin were all in the same room, but that was entirely possible. The influences and connections between these artists were huge, and I can't help but think that Chopin's musical style, especially that nocturne style, was influenced by what these composers were doing at the opera. Rossini, Bellini, and Donizetti were the so-called bel canto composers, the inheritors of an Italian tradition of vocal writing that was meant to show off the sheer beauty of the human voice. In their music, especially in arias or passages with slower tempos, the accompaniment from the orchestra would be very, very simple. Just some broken chords, played perhaps, by the stringed instruments or by a harp, so that the voice could shine on the top of that accompaniment. Here's a great example from Donizetti's Don Pasquale, which will be featured in our 2012 season. The aria introduces the character Norina, our heroine, in a scene which finds her reading a novel about the age of chivalry. In the accompaniment we have simple, broken chords, and on top of that we have a beautiful, limpid melody for the voice. That was the wonderful soprano Barbara Hendricks singing the aria Quel guardo il cavaliere. Do you hear how similar in style that is to the Chopin Nocturne that we heard earlier? You can't deny the similarity. Not just the fact that we have a simple accompaniment with a beautiful melody, but the style, the feeling in the music. That is the essence of bel canto. This season we get the chance to see and hear two wonderful bel canto operas, Rossini's Barber of Seville, as well as Donizetti's Don Pasquale. You'll have plenty of opportunities to trace this Italianate style, the art of bel canto, beautiful singing. I'm Nic Reveles, and I'll see you at the opera.